Hello.
We are going live, folks. It is Mike Kegley here with Brad Sturdy. We are talking about Illinois' overtime victory, 50-49, against a Purdue team that, I'll be honest, was resurrected from the dead. Brad, give me some thoughts on this.
I mean, what is there to say? I mean, you're just like, it's just survival. I mean, you're up 24-3 at halftime. You feel like, and I think they thought the game was over. But and although Purdue has maybe laid down a little bit in other games, they were not laying down this one. There was a pride factor, and wow, that was bad. I mean, just a
Yeah.
really bad second half from the Illinois defense. It looked like they didn't their inability to stop the run or the pass even, and that was just uh, devastating. And then you have a couple of the special teams play, and then the sack for six that just give Purdue extra momentum.
Yeah. As good as Luke played, you've got to recognize pressure in the pocket, and you also got to cover the ball up. Ked, what were your thoughts on this game as you are leaving Memorial Stadium?
I had to call my mom to calm me down because I didn't want to say anything inappropriate, so you guys will fire me. But I'm speechless. I don't even know what to think or say. I don't. I'm okay. Forget the media hat. I'm a fan right now. How in the hell do you give up 50 points to a Purdue team? And I'm not criticizing Ryan Walters. Everybody's going to. But what they fail to report on this quarterback. And he played really, really well today. And they ran a bunch of trick plays. Great. But it's embarrassing that they cannot make things easy. Fans are just beside themselves right now. They're excited, but they're kind of confused, just like we are.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it out there, and you guys can then tell me why I'm wrong. But at what point do you say that, okay, we just gave up 49 points to the worst team in the Big Ten potentially? What point do you say that we maybe don't have the right defensive coordinator?
Well, I mean, I think it's a fair assessment had you lost this game, man. I mean, but you saw what Walters did. They kind of been struggling on offense. They make a change.
Right.
And and he's calling offensive plays today. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure I'm quite there yet because there've been games when he's been good this year.
Yep.
But today was a debacle. But here's the other side of this. I blame. It's not just him because it was 20. Was it not 27-3 at one point in the third quarter?
I agree.
They had 3 points, but now here's the thing. We know, in our text chain, we were saying if Purdue would just run the ball and run these same play over and over, they never stop it, right?
Yeah, I agree.
We kept saying that, and
we're going to see that next week, Brad.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I know. I think we are, but and Michigan's offensively challenged, so there's no excuse to give up. And you're not scoring 50 against Michigan.
No, you're not.
So you better play better defensively. They better make some adjustments. But here's the other part, Mike. They also they have to. Their personnel is not getting the job done at linebacker and on the front. They're not getting the job done.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ked.
Here's my thought. I'm not going to. Aaron Henry's been great all year. They only give up an average of 14 points a game. Today stunk. I don't believe in making a change and firing a guy because of one game. That's not that guy. I've coached before, been a part of it. It stinks. My disappointment was not being able to get pressure on that quarterback until the last play of the game. If I was frustrated, if I'm a head coach or even defensive coordinator, that's the part that upsets me. They could not bring him down at all. And I think it kept drives alive. Purdue was one of the worst teams in the country converting third downs. It was a cakewalk. I was scared going into overtime because I knew Illinois couldn't stop them. But to answer your question, Mike, yes, they'll make some changes, but you don't fire people, after one collapse like that because Illinois' defense has been pretty solid all year. You're right. They're not going to score 50 points, Brad, right, against Michigan. And I will tell you this, though. If I'm Michigan, I'm looking at what Purdue did today, and I'm going to do the same thing because they cannot stop that quarterback. And Purdue's got something going, guys. I mean, it stinks that they're 1-5. They're going to be a tough out for people moving forward.
I think this was a bit of, obviously Ryan has a bee in his bonnet about Bielema for some reason. And I think he puts a lot of fire into his guys playing Illinois. This is a rivalry game for their head coach. I also wonder if going for it and not getting it and then losing bad to Oregon could cost him his job.
I think that's fair. I think that's a decision. The one thing I'll say in Ked's point, I totally agree with him about not, it's not time to fire Aaron Henry. But I will say this. I said it's not just one game because last year was a debacle as well. So it's not just one game where we've seen this. So I think that, I do think that there is definitely concern, but you got to you're 5-1. I mean, it's not time to be making wholesale changes.
I agree. I was more just talking about the overall performance of the defense. I don't think anybody's going to fire anybody at 5-1. Ked?
No, but you know what, though? Let's give Ryan Walters and Purdue some credit. I'm going to give them a lot of credit. They threw a lot of different things at Illinois, things that nobody has seen. A lot of those flea breakers, those trick plays worked today to their advantage. So, you know what? That's not going to hold true every game. You can't do that kind of stuff to win in the Big Ten. They did what they had to. They were 1-14, trying to get a W. He is fighting for his job. I'm sorry, he really is. People can think that he's not going to. I saw in that press box today, and I heard what the Purdue people were saying. If he loses next week, which is very likely, is possible, he could be in trouble. So Matt, is one of our colleagues disagreed because the buyout is $9 million, but this is not good for the Big Ten. For Purdue moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. It's a challenging time. Look, here's where I really put Illinois. We all talked about this in the preseason. Their defensive line at Illinois was going to be problematic. The linebacker position was weak. So this isn't a surprise, although giving up 536 yards to Purdue is a surprise. In the end, Illinois has to recruit better at those positions. Isn't that really the solution to this? Because you've got to get better Jimmies and Joes.
Yes. It's not my turn, but yes.
No, I agree with you. The other thing, though, I would say, though, you have to find a way to clearly. I do think you have to find a way to adjust to things, though, and they did a great job. Give Purdue credit for adjusting and figuring out, hey, this works. Let's just keep doing it and finding what's open. Illinois did not do a good job of adjusting that because, and I go back to you mentioned bringing pressure. You've got a quarterback who is a backup quarterback, and I don't know why they were afraid to come at him more, But I think part of it was they were playing we got a 24-3 lead. We can just play it out and we'll be fine. And we'll run the football. We'll do, it's like that whole, and I hate the phrase playing not to lose, but I feel like they were it was game management type stuff, but you can't have, you can't not recover things and you can't get sacked for 6 and all those things. And you have to be able to slow them down. They can't get, score quickly when you're doing that. I mean, and so that's where it didn't really, just didn't really work and didn't connect. And, what's weird to me is that in our text thread, and we're all idiots, right? I mean, as a group, we're pretty much dumb. We knew that this was, we saw a problem before halftime, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we were saying this in the thread because we're seeing this. So I know the Illinois coaches saw it because we're not geniuses.
Right, exactly. I just wonder, guys, what can they do about it when you're just wafer thin? I mean, do you put Eddie Turk? Do you put him in there as a freshman and say, okay, you're going to get some rotations because we got to give Tay-Raw some rest, and you're going to be baptized by pure fire, which would be next week against Michigan and then the week after at Oregon?
Mike, let me answer your first question. I want to, to go back to your last question, excuse me. This is the era of NIL. Illinois is not the bottom feeder of the Big Ten. They have everything to offer a college athlete. I just was at the basketball media day yesterday, and one of the things that Orlando Antigua said, not talking basketball, but this university has first-class facilities, first-class education, and there's NIL money. Go get kids. There's no reason that you can't go get kids. Illinois is an attractive university. If you win games, the fans will show up. And I don't understand why they're so thin at these positions. Go out and tell the collective, listen, if we want to compete with the Oregons and the Michigans and Penn State, we can't be thin at on the defensive line. We can't be thin at linebacker, because at the end of the day, money talks.
Brad, how easy is that to up the NIL right now? Is that what kind of challenge do you think that presents people?
I mean, I think everything's a challenge. I mean, it's always a chance. I mean, but it's a university that should be able to compete. Now, I don't know that they're going to be able to compete with some of those schools because of the I mean, do they have the NIL dollars that Michigan, Ohio State have? No, I don't think so. But they should have more than Purdue. There's not really an excuse for that. And this is I think that's the concern. You have to be able to handle those teams. And then, this is a down year for Michigan. This is an up year for Illinois. This is a great opportunity next weekend. And, they survived. And now you got to find a way to get stops against Michigan. Because if I'm Michigan, Michigan can't throw the ball very well, but I don't know that I would throw the ball. Like, I mean, I would just hand off, run to quarterback like 60 times. And I'm not sure I would put the ball in the air. Because right. I just don't know why you would until the other team stops it. There was a few years back. Do you remember when I think it was Ron Turner, one of Ron Turner's teams, and Northwestern didn't pass in the second half.
I remember that.
They just handed it off.
Well, and Michigan did this against Penn State, wasn't it? Wasn't it Penn State that Michigan ran the ball 35 times in a row or something?
They just ran the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so they know. I mean, they'll do it. So, they've got to figure out a way to stop the run. And maybe it's run blitzes. I mean, sometimes, you might put your cornerback on an island occasionally, but you're going to have to do that if you want to be successful, because what they're putting up front is not getting it done. Johnny Newton ain't up there. Keith Randolph isn't up there. I mean, they're not getting the job done. So got to find a better way to do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's kind of the way I look at it. It's something they've got to figure out. And the other thing, I guess, that gets me is what do you do to get some consistency out of that offensive line? Because now, granted, like I said, Luke Altmaier, one time he fumbled, he wasn't really aware of the pressure, et cetera. But for the most part, he even though he was sacked, he got sacked a few times, 5 times, but he was under pressure a lot, and they've got to do something different on the offensive line. 1, to run the ball up the middle a little bit better, and 2, to protect the quarterback. What do you think is next for their, to try to figure out how to solve these problems?
Well, unless you're going to go to the playoffs today, it's going to be kind of hard to do that. Go back to the Penn State game. Wasn't Luke sacked 7 times? You said
yes.
Today, Mike is not going to change. I mean, you can't go get players tomorrow. I mean, I know they've talked about it. Like Brad said, they're intelligent. They're paid a ton of money. I just don't know if the talent's good enough to do it. At some point, Luke's going to get hurt, and he is having a tremendous year. If they don't figure this out, their season could be over really soon without him, because they have to find a way to protect him. And the schemes that they're doing right now, it is not working. Sorry, Brad, I know it's your turn, but I'm really frustrated.
Yeah, well, I know. It's okay, kid. So so my fix is you have to run more against defenses that are applying that much pressure and getting that much pressure. You have to run things that are quicker developing, faster paced things. You have to get the ball out quicker. Go back to, and I know it's a long time ago, remember the Bears, the Dolphins beat them with quick passing back in the 84. That was the one team that beat them.
Yep.
Marino with that quick release, getting it out to those wideouts. Illinois has really good wideouts. I mean, and really got some good stuff on the slot too with Hank Beatty today. So this was they've got the weapons out there. Get rid of the ball, and find the matchup, get rid of the ball. the same thing even with running. A lot of the plays are slow developing, and those guys have to hold their blocks way longer than they can. And so this is just an example of, I think you have to make a little adjustment, and not every play, but I think sometimes we have to be a little bit more attack mode, going toward attacking the quickly, getting the ball out as fast as possible, things like that. Maybe a little more, do a better job in misdirection, things like that. When you do have delays and things like that. But yeah, they have to make some adjustments. Before the season, we were told the offensive line was going to be a great strength of this team.
Yes,
and
yes.
I don't think that's panned out, even though the offense itself has been, outside the Penn State game, the offense has been pretty darn good.
Yeah, and let's do one thing, Brad. If you remember when Mike Farrell had the offensive line ranked down to the bottom part of the middle of the Big Ten, everybody was upset, and turned out Mike Farrell might have known a little more than we thought he did.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and and I don't know that they just don't they don't open a lot of holes on the running game, and Luke Altmaier's taking a beating. So your job as offensive line, I think those are the two things, right? But I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Well, Brett wants to run the ball, and that's been a staple of his. But truth be told, it's not going to change, guys. They can run different schemes. I do agree with Brad. He did give a recipe of how to beat it. I just don't know if that's what they're going to do. If that's what they're going to do. What we've seen is what we're going to get. They're not going to get better, that much better, in the next 5-6 games, whatever, what have you, ever how many they have left. From a positive standpoint, I will say this: I cannot believe how good Pat Bryant and Franklin are as receivers. I knew when they went to overtime, Illinois was going to score. My concerns were because they couldn't stop anybody. Luke Altmaier has looked totally different. He trusts those two guys. They run good routes. They run good patterns. They have good hands. My seat in the press box was next to 3 NFL scouts. I mentioned this at halftime. That kid's going to make a lot of money. Pat Bryant's going to make a lot of money on Sundays, guys. And Illinois is really lucky because Brett Bielema's teams don't typically score 50 points. I can't believe he let them come out, throw the ball on the first pass, or throw a pass and the first play in overtime. That's not him. But kudos, they got the win. It was a trap game like one of our subscribers just said, but it's an ugly game that has concerns for me moving forward.
Yeah, well, we did get a note there from Teddy Massey, who decided he was going to go to Target at halftime, and then everything fell apart when he got back. I told him never leave an Illini game again.
It's his fault.
Well,
him.
Exactly. And you know what? And to his credit, he did stick around to the very end, and they won. So basically, I think he is going to he's going to prove his worth. Now he won't ever leave an Illini game. They could go undefeated the rest of the way.
Can he tackle?
We'll have to see if Teddy can tackle. Here's the question now. So this is where I think Brett Bielema took some abuse for this during the game. But the fact of the matter is people were angry that Illinois was only up 24-3, which shows the difference between when Lovie Smith and some of the clown patrol before Lovie were head coaches at Illinois. People at 24-3, if we were down 24-3, it was like, hey, that's a pretty good half. So he's changed kind of the thought process where fans have a little higher expectations. But as we look at this, what are the positives? If you're Coach Bielema, there's a lot of negatives you're going to be looking at, but you also have to have a team that's going to go out and think they've got a shot at beating Michigan next week, and they still have to go out to one of the toughest places in America to play at Oregon. So what are you going to build on for the positives, Brad?
Well, you scored 50. Offensively, you were dominant. You did a great job. You just couldn't stop them defensively. And there obviously the couple of fluke plays, here and there, weird things happened that allowed, helped Purdue in the second half. But I think you just say, hey, the first half is what we can be. We're a team that can, dominate, control things, and, have a 24-3 lead at halftime. We have to be that team. and people, you can say you want a bigger lead, but if you went up 24-3, if you win the second half 24-3, you win 48-6, and we're all sitting over here. It's great. And so, I guess that, the problem was that you just can't give up, so you can't give up 40 points in the second half. I mean, that's insane.
And you can't give up because this team had opportunities. Say what you want. This team had opportunities that they could have quit that they didn't in this game.
It's 43-40 with 43 seconds to go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to not come down and get the field goal, right? I mean, it took some plays, it took some good stuff there to get that done, and that's what we have to remember is they did show that, at least on the offensive side. They showed a lot of fight, and then the defense made the play at the end. And sometimes you only got to make the one play, and they did. And we were texting, and we were scared to death that Purdue was going to get the 2-point conversion because Illinois literally hadn't stopped them.
Yeah, and it was interesting. And then, Kat, I'll let you go. I thought was really interesting is that's when you saw Ryan Brown was essentially a rookie practically. Yep. Because he didn't know what to do or where to go when everything broke down. And I also think a few of his gesticulations towards the end of the game there, towards the Illinois sideline, might have also fired some people up as they were trying to catch him that last and final time.
We've got this is a pretty big grudge match right now between these two schools. And it's interesting though, Illinois needed to win this so it can say a grudge match because if you can't beat them, then you can't really don't have a grudge. And so Illinois wins this one, and now it's a grudge match. And I don't think that, the weird part about it is it may not be a grudge match in a year because who knows if Walters will still be around.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you know what? I want to also give them credit. I think, Mike, you asked this earlier, and I didn't. I went right over my head. I don't blame Purdue for going for 2. I thought, man, it was a smart idea because, like Brad just mentioned, they scored 40 points. Illinois never stopped them once, so why would you think they're going to stop you on a 2-point conversion? I think they converted 2 or 3 of them in regulation. So kudos to them. The positives, I only see one positive, a 1-point win. That's my one positive.
Well, that's nice and concise, Kat. I like that. I like that. So this was a big weekend for recruiting. Kat, what are your thoughts on this victory? You had the opportunity to talk to a ton of guys. We'll see a string of articles from you this week. What were your thoughts about who was there and what they think about this Illini program?
Well, a lot of people are always going to say, because they're on a visit, they're always going to tell you the right thing as far as their love for the Illinois because they're there. Illinois is recruiting them. And so it's important for them to be able to say, hey, I'm interested in Illinois. But one guy I want to talk about that I tweeted about was Cam Thomas. He's a linebacker, 2026. And, it was rumored that he was going to go to Ohio State or Michigan. And I asked, and he was like, basically saying, if I was going to go there, why would I be at Illinois? Well, the thing that Illinois has to sell is that they have guys in the NFL. They're putting guys in the NFL. And I mentioned the facilities. I don't think people really realize. I know you guys, fans that are listening, you go to the games. But if there's ever an opportunity to go visit the Smith Center, the Ubben basketball complex, Josh Whitman has done a great job of putting Illinois up with some of the upper echelon teams in the Big Ten as far as the facilities. So the recruits know Illinois, if you win, that they're going to, the fans will come. They know they have a chance to, be developed. Mike, I'm not going to be long-winded here, but I want to make one more comment. There was, down there talking to some of the recruits, I didn't get to see who it was, but there was one high school kid that went to school with an Illinois player that's on the roster right now. And I remember this lady looking at her husband, and the first thing she said was, "Oh my gosh, is this what college should do for you? This kid looks like a grown man. He looks totally different." She yelled this kid's name over, and during warm-ups, she came to take a picture with her. The reason I'm saying this is because Illinois has a good player development program. The players will get better under Brett Bielema. They just have to get the players. I do trust the system. but they have to get better recruits.
Yeah, I think that's probably the conclusion that we would all draw upon this. And I do think if you're a kid, okay, if you're a high school kid, this is a fun game to watch. I mean, as adults, we're probably a little more jaded on wanting to do better and wanting to, perform to the maximum of ability. But if I'm a high schooler there watching a game and I see Illinois pull it out 50-40 and there's points going up left and right and guys getting hit and exciting plays, if I'm a defensive player, I'm thinking, well, good, I'm going to be able to start. And if I'm an offensive player, I'm going to say, I want to be out there with those other guys scoring points. So maybe this was a huge win on recruiting. Brad, what are your thoughts?
They added 4 teams from the Pac-12 and they became the Big 12. I guess that's it. Just 50-49 every week.
Yeah.
Just keep scoring. So I don't know. No, I think it's obviously you definitely can sell playing time on the defensive side of the ball, and you can sell a high-powered offense. Brett Bielema has the reputation of running the football, et cetera. But they threw the ball a lot today, and they got a lot of big plays down the field. If you're a wide receiver, you got to look at what Franklin and Bryant are doing, and you're like, wow, I could be a part of that. And there's a lot of options. And if you're a quarterback, you got to look at Luke Allmeyer and say, man, look at where this dude's come in the past year. I mean, he's now a bona fide, literally maybe an all Big Ten quarterback. So pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah, Mike. Yeah, Mike. Without a doubt, Brad mentioned on a positive note. You look at the player development. You look at players that have gotten better. We knew coming in Luke was good, but when you come into a new system, learning it makes it. You have to be a very, very special player to come in to be dominant in year one. He looks totally different. He looks confident. I don't know what his touchdown interception ratio is. Excuse me. He only has 1 interception, but he's just really, really a difference maker right now. And I know Illinois is not a top 5 team in the country, but Brad mentioned, he's right. When you look at some of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten, you have to mention his name. He's been great.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's been fantastic, and I have to be honest as well. The team is exciting to watch, and I will tell you, it's interesting in covering this because there were plenty of issues that Illinois didn't do well today. But I'll be darned if I'm going to complain too much about a win, and that comes as a fan who's been going to games since the 0-0 tie against Northwestern back in the late 70s. I've been to a boatload of Illinois games over the decades, and there's a lot of them where I saw a lot of bad things, and Illinois ended up on the losing stick. To me, this will just go down, later on. People will just look at it and they'll see the W and they're not going to be concerned about it. And I thought it was good that they kept competing and they could have given up. And at that point, you've got to try to learn what you can learn from this game, because next week it gets, the degree of difficulty, especially the next 2 weeks, goes up dramatically.
Hey, Mike, here, let me ask you guys this. Do you think if they would have played Michigan today and won 50-49 instead of Purdue, do you think the fans would be as mad or as stressed out? Do you think it's because Purdue is such a bad team that people are kind of bitter about it?
Oh, for sure. Purdue's, you have to look at Purdue's previous scores. They've been god awful.
Yeah.
There's really no other way to put it. I'm not sure that their only win was not even against a Division I team, was it?
No.
So you're talking a team that and they've been pretty much blown out in every game, and so that's why people are frustrated or upset, and we know, in being Illinois football fans historically, we know that things go. They tend to give away opportunities, historically speaking, and this would have been another one. But they got the win. College football playoff hopes are still alive, baby. So just win. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I think that's a fair one, and that tends to be how I look at it too, because again, you guys have all coached, and the point is to get through the game with a W. And yeah, you'd love every game to be a blowout and you destroy them, but the bottom line is you need the W's.
Well, they're 5-1, and they're one game away from a bowl game. It will be really satisfying for them to become bowl eligible next Saturday in our sold-out stadium against Michigan. I do think there'll be some adjustments. I do. Again, and defensive Aaron Henry, and I like the guy. Nobody knew anything about this quarterback, and Purdue had nothing to lose. I think the fluke plays loosened things up, made the game easier for him, and that's a good job to the coaching staff. So at the end of the day, Mike, you're right. 3 weeks from now, you're not going to think about this game. If you do, you won't think about the score because it's going to be a W in the win column.
Yeah, looking at Minnesota last year, you don't worry about all the mistakes. You just look, hey, they won it, or you pick the game that Illinois, squeezed out last year, and you're like, okay, they won it. That was great. So, final thoughts here before we wrap this up, Brad?
Obviously, the schedule gets tougher the next 2 weeks. You got to find a way to play better, execute better. Be more physical, be tougher. All those things, all those cliches we can say. But at the end of the day, they have to execute better, and they have to find a way to be better on the defensive side of the ball in the next 2 weeks if they want to have a chance to pull those upsets. And if they can, then here's the thing: regardless if they win next week, no matter what the score is, people are going to forget about the Purdue game. It's going to be about beating Michigan, and then they're going to be thinking about Oregon. So just now, it's next game up. So now you're just going to win the one in front of you.
I think the next game is important because you're playing two traditionally powerhouse programs, and Michigan and Oregon. Beat Michigan. If you lose at Oregon, no one's going to fault you for it.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, folks, we want to wrap this up here. We appreciate people jumping on. We know you got a lot of things going on in life, but we try to get this right after the game. And certainly, if you enjoy what you've seen here, if you're not a subscriber to Illini Guys, I would tell you to go ahead and do that. The biggest thing you get is you get all the stories in their entirety. If you're just looking at our stuff, you may see a lot of them. There is a subscription wall, and you don't see everything. And our subscribers get the stories, most of the stories, ahead of time. So they get an opportunity to read it ahead of time. But the thing that I think is the biggest and the difference is we have a message board. And on that message board, there are Illinois fans from around the world. You get on there, you can communicate back and forth with them. And you also can talk to Ked, Brad, Larry, Matt, and myself, and go back and forth there to ask questions. And so many times in today's world, you get an article from a website, you don't get a chance to be able to interact with the person who wrote it, to ask them questions about what they meant, etc. And so this is a real opportunity for you to go to basically get that almost like a white glove treatment where you get to talk to folks and get clarifications and better understand it. And it's also a nice community. We have times when people help each other with tickets, people have parties, that type of thing. So you run into that as well. So it is a really, really, good community. We'd encourage people to come, and the cost of it on an annual basis is 27 cents a day. So it is very cheap over the course of a year, $99. And we have been at that price point forever. And we have done our best to keep it there, even though the Big Ten expanding has made travel much more of a pain in the butt from an expense standpoint. So with that, I am going to thank Ked and Brad for coming on. I know they've got busy things going on. Thank you guys for taking a few minutes of your time to listen. I will be doing a one in the next half hour or so with Matt Stevens, who is right now talking to Coach B and in the locker room, and want to let you know that will be coming very quickly. So if you have time, be looking for us to be talking even more Illini after a 50-49 overtime victory that takes Illinois to 5-1. And that is a great place to be as Illini fans. It isn't that way all the time. Until we see you later on, go Illini.